I want to introduce Dr. Lilliana Patricia Saldaña. Dr. Lilliana Patricia Saldaña is an associate professor of Mexican American Studies at the University of Texas in San Antonio, and she is co-director of the UTSA MAS Teachers Academy. Her activist scholarship draws from her Chicana X studies, decolonial and anti-colonial studies, indigenous epistemologies, and Chicana Latina feminisms to investigate teacher identity and consciousness and decolonial practices in schools and community spaces. She is published in nationally recognized journals, including Latinos in Education, Association of Mexican American Educators Journal, and she has published in various edited volumes. As a local scholar, she is actively involved with social justice organizations like the Esperanza Peace and Justice Center and the Mexican American Civil Rights Institute. She has also been actively involved in local and statewide campaigns for Mexican American studies in Texas, K through 12 public schools. Lilliana is also passionate about sustaining indigenous foodways and is an excellent cook. When she's not teaching or researching, she's learning about Mexican and indigenous foodways, facilitating gastronomy workshops, and tending to her kitchen. So give a warm welcome to Dr. Lilliana Patricia Saldaña.
Thank you so much, Adán. Ay, gracias.
Te quito este.
Oh, gracias. Buenos días, good morning. Un placer estar aquí con todos. Such an honor to be here. Muchas gracias, Chef Medrano, Cristina Ortega, and all the organizers and sponsors who made the world premiere of this Encuentro possible. It's an honor to share space with you this morning to learn, to coexist in Convivencia through comida casera. I have so much to share, and I realize that I only have 10 minutes, so I'm going to keep to my notes here, porque sometimes my students gently nudge me and say, Maestra, ya se acabó la clase. I don't mean to be rude, but class is over. So I want to begin by saying that this morning's delectable breakfast menu represents the integration of ancestral foods in our day-to-day diet and the continuity of culinary traditions, from preparing chilaquiles, nopalitos, atole, and the amazing grape dumplings that I have enjoyed with my cafecito this morning. Dishes that are made with millenary plant foods that have sustained our families and communities in this region and beyond. The beauty of these foods lies in the intergenerational convivencia of preparing these foods as recipes and family stories are shared and passed down from elders to the younger generations. So the Chilaquiles al Guajillo con Nopalitos by Chef Victoria Elizondo brings together foods that have been used by indigenous people for millennia. Maíz, dried mirasol peppers, and nopalitos, which are typically made with tender petals of the prickly pear cactus plant. People of northern Mexico developed the culinary technology of dehydrating and smoking chiles, which not only lengthened their use, but also contributed to rich and intense aromas and flavors. Many of the dried chiles that we use today are grown and cultivated in northern Mexico, especially the highlands of Zacatecas, which is where my family's from. And these continue to be a part of Texas Mexican gastronomy, as guajillos and other dried smoked chiles are used in moles, pozole, menudo, guisados, and chilaquiles. The nopalitos, which comes from the Nahuatl word nopali, are also a staple of our diet, as they've been cultivated and domesticated for almost 9,000 years, along with corn, beans, and other native foods. They were the principal food of the Chichimecas, also my ancestors, and continue to be a traditional food of Texas Mexican people. I think I have the right slide, yes. So the pecan The pecan amaranth atole by Chef Rebel Mariposa bridges landscapes across the Texas-Mexico borderlands where pecans grow abundant with central Mexico and many other parts of the Americas, where amaranth has been cultivated for thousands of years. And as Chef Mariposa mentioned, amaranth grows everywhere. There are so many varieties of amaranth. And amaranth is rich in protein, more so than maize, and is native to present-day Texas, many parts of Texas, and also Central America, and is regarded as one of the most important medicinal and culinary plants on this hemisphere. The seeds of the amaranth plant can be used in atoles, horchatas, and pinole, which is ground toasted corn flour, sometimes flavored and aromatized with spices like cinnamon and clove. Before colonization, the Nahuatl-speaking peoples of present-day central Mexico would grind the seeds and mix it with maguey, honey, and make breads in the shape of tezcatlipoca, tlaloc, chalchihuitlique, cuautlique, and chimecoatl for ceremonial purposes. Today, in present-day Texas, indigenous food practitioners continue to cultivate and use amaranth in ancestral drinks like atoles, which connect us to the culinary legacies of our ancestors. As Dr. Leslie Bush mentioned yesterday, pecans are also abundant across present-day Texas, particularly along rivers and streams, and are so nutritious and bountiful that their presence must have had a profound impact on the settlement patterns of indigenous communities across the region. I grew up with pecans, and I imagine many of you may have grown up gathering pecans. People of this region have been gathering and processing pecans for at least 8,000 years. The Spanish settlers called them nueces, fruit of the walnut, and referred to the trees as nogales, after the walnut trees that they were familiar with. Alvar Núñez Cabeza de Vaca, member of the Narvaez expedition, mentioned that the Mariame who inhabited the lower Guadalupe River Valley in southern Texas ate pecans for 1 to 2 months each fall, and their nut groves attracted other indigenous groups who traveled from nearby communities to partake in the harvest. Juan Sabeata, a Humano living in West Texas during the late 1600s, also wrote about the importance of pecans and noted that indigenous people would travel for 3 days to harvest pecans along the Nueces River because they were so abundant. They enjoyed convivencia, friendship, and exchange. A Spaniard by the name of Espinosa observed activities at a payaya camp along the Medina River in 1709. He noted that pecan trees grew on the lower terraces of the river and saw payaya storing pecans in leather sacks and underground pits and strung the nut meats on cords. In the Cado region, Fray Isidro de Espinosa reported that the communities relied on pecans as subsistence and collected enough to last them an entire year. And of course, as a Chicano studies scholar, I always think of the pecan shellers in Yanaguana, San Antonio, who not only made a living, but ensured that we all had access to pecans. I also want to highlight the delicious Cado grape dumplings by Chef Diana Parton-Smith, and which were prepared by Chef Stephen McKinney. I've never had grape dumplings before, so this was definitely a culinary treat. And most importantly, I'm grateful to have learned the story behind this traditional recipe, which is an example of how Cado families have continued to resist colonization by honoring ancestral foods. Like so many indigenous people in Texas and beyond, Cado were forced to adopt wheat after colonization. This recipe is a reflection of the creativity and innovative spirit of indigenous people who created new dishes out of their circumstances while still honoring the ancestral foods like muscadine grapes, which are native to the southeastern United States and were the first native grape species to be cultivated in North America. So a little bit about intergenerational convivencia, or coexistence. What we see through these delightful recipes by chefs Rebel Mariposa, Victoria Lizondo, and Diana Parton-Smith is the persistence of indigenous ingredients and culinary techniques of comida casera, or home-style dishes, often passed down by matriarchs in the sacred and intimate spaces of our homes. This is a process I refer to as intergenerational convivencia, a term that I ground in Chicana feminist and indigenous thought. To begin with, convivencia is a Spanish word that means to coexist. According to Ruth Trinidad Galvan, convivencia is an indigenous cultural tradition that honors social relations of personal and communal learning and healing. I extend on Galvan's concept to think of the many ways in which we teach and learn to prepare what Chef Medrano calls Texas Mexican food, the comida casera that has nurtured our people for thousands of years across present-day Texas, across the present-day Texas-Mexico regional triangle and beyond. Intergenerational convivencia also points to the ways that we are transformed as we learn from this culinary knowledge and from the culinary knowledge keepers in our families, namely the matriarchs who pass down this generational knowledge, giving us opportunities to recreate dishes with new ingredients out of necessity and survival. Kitchens, dining rooms, or comedores, backyards, patios, or our places of work, anywhere where food is grown, harvested, prepared, served, and consumed are places of social relationships, are spaces of teaching, and are also places of healing. Convivencia is more than just the transmission of knowledge, the passing down of step-by-step recipes, of culinary techniques and ingredients. Convivencia, or coexisting with others, is about experiencing joy, it's about deep connection and healing from the historical traumas and the ongoing legacies of colonization. It's about living in community where our relationships are reinforced through new and old bonds. In this sense, intergenerational convivencia is a method of survival where we are able to remain whole because coexisting with others requires that we be consciously present in the moment, living with purpose among others. It's a part of our lifeways where we learn of the vivencias or lived experiences of our ancestors, where elders can share life histories, and where we can recreate dishes that are rooted in the ancestral lands and foods and culinary knowledge of generations before us. Like Chef Victoria Lizondo, and I imagine many of you here today, I grew up eating nopalitos and chilaquiles and atoles, and I have so many memories of convivencias through the teaching and learning of these foods. In my convivencias with my mom, I've learned to save my tomatillo husks, which are sticky and contain high levels of lycopene and beta-carotene, which I learned, and have been used since pre-Columbian times for remedios. The husks specifically aid in respiratory problems, soothe earaches, and help with stomach aches. My mom reminds me that cooking tomatillo husks and nopalitos together helps lower glucose levels, which is good for diabetics, and I come from a family of diabetics. So intergenerational convivencia is a space for the exchange and sharing of knowledge across generations, and it's rooted in our cultural and gendered ways of knowing as Texas, Mexican, and indigenous people. So as I mentioned, I have piloted a Mexican-American foodways class. So as a Mas educator from Texas with ancestral connections to Kashkan and Guachichil lands, I strive to center these ways of knowing where students can gain a deeper understanding of their multi-layered identities and complex histories through the study and preparation of food. And it is really exciting because first of all, our students, our youth, and our children deserve to have access to this knowledge, not only in their homes, but in the places where they spend a majority of their time, which is in school. So at a time when our books are being banned, when our histories are being erased, and our lifeways are threatened by capitalism and the ongoing climate crisis, it's important more than ever to create spaces and opportunities where children and youth can learn, document, research, share, celebrate, and affirm their humanity and convivencia with others, where they can actively and intentionally learn from elders in their family and experience the joy of cooking comida casera. And I will say that the first time I ever brought a little comal to my classroom, And I brought masa so students could make tortillas. My students, when they went to the classroom, they said, it smells like home. Yeah, I was not expecting that at all. So it's really important, right, to create these opportunities to learn about and from our landscapes, to be in convivencia with our plant and animal relatives, and reflect on how our food consumption impacts the environment in our communities, who are often at risk of epidemics like diabetes. Learning and sharing this ancestral culinary knowledge is not only spiritually grounding, but it is also political, particularly as we come up with collective and intentional strategies of creation resistance. So in sum, the recipes of this breakfast showcase highlight native ingredients that have been grown and harvested in this region for millennia, and also the creative spirit of ancestors who recreated these dishes out of the confluence of these various ingredients. So the culinary knowledge that is handed forward from one generation to another expresses meanings of history and identity, especially when enjoyed in community with others. Muchísimas gracias.